I watched a video the other day about a guy who was like, the Apple credit card's kind of shit, and Apple sued him. Welcome to Business Blaze. I am your host, Simon, and in the video today, we are going to learn something together. I heard that Kodak built the first digital camera, but then Kodak went out of business like 5 years ago, although they're somehow still around. I wanted to know that story. I had this article written by Steve put together about Kodak building the first digital camera and doing nothing with it. It's exactly what I asked for. So let's learn together and let's go through this. Let's crack on. When someone wants to take a picture these days, they usually pick up their phone or their tablet. And if they pick up their tablet to take a picture, I've got a tablet right here. These people who are like holding up their tablets and taking pictures, I judge them. I fully judge them. Also on the iPhone, I was like, that camera button on the iPhone that you have to hard press to get the camera out. Dude, it took me like 6 months to work that shit out. What used to be a fine art has now turned into something that anyone can do with a couple of swipes or the bloody hard press. If you don't have an iPhone, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but this was so counterintuitive. I'm like, I'm gonna get my phone. I am swiping this damn button all over the place and I'm getting like calculator. Oh, you gotta press it really hard. Jesus Christ. Digital photography revolutionized the art of photography a long time ago. It sure did. I am old enough to remember and have had film cameras. Feels weird to say because I'm sure there are people watching this video who absolutely don't. They probably don't even remember cameras because all they've had is this. But the invention of digital snaps actually goes back much further. Not only that, it led to one of the most spectacular own goals in business history. I've spoiled that. It's gonna be Kodak screwing around. So who first came up with the idea of a digital camera? Well, the world famous company Kodak, way back in 1974. I first had a digital camera, like, it wasn't made by Kodak. That would make no sense because they didn't do anything with it. But it looked like an Apple computer from back in the day where they had those big plastic backs and it was kind of semi-see-through. It was a real beast. At the time, Kodak was the dominant force in the home photography market. You took a picture and then you waited for someone to develop it in a lab. Enthusiasts would set up their own darkrooms if they wanted to develop images themselves. In fact, I did this. There was a darkroom at school and there was a photography club and we took photos with like pinhole cameras and then developed them in a darkroom. It was surprisingly satisfying and a massive amount of hassle and exposure to dangerous chemicals. You probably couldn't do this in school these days. People in school, do you still have darkrooms? Engineer Steve Sasson, however, had other plans. At age just 24, he laid the first digital camera building block in the shape of a CCD, or charge-coupled device. It was invented by physicists William S. Boyle and George E. Smith in 1969. Sasson had been given the device to play with by his employers at Kodak. Fantastic, but what is this device? Alright, what does a CCD do? Thank you, Steve. Not Steve Sasson, Steve the author of this piece. The short version is, it's made of silicon onto which a circuit is etched in order to make pixels. The pixels then interact with the photons, so electronic devices like our phones can read light patterns falling on the CCD. In reading these light patterns, a digital copy is created. If I've got that straight, you have your sensor or whatever it is. I think it's actually called a sensor. You have your sensor, it's got a bunch of, it's got a grid, which are pixels, then photons, which is light, fall onto it. However light falls onto a sensor, I guess we don't really need to know that. I don't understand it. And then the circuit there with all the pixels on it saves whatever is falling on it at that moment. Cool. I think I understand digital cameras.
F you, science.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but this is a short piece, and it's not really important for the article. The New York Times describes the world's first digital camera. As you can imagine, it was a rather crude affair. And this is from the New York Times. The final result was a Rube Goldberg device with a lens scavenged from a used Super 8 movie camera, a portable digital cassette recorder, 60 nickel-cadmium batteries, an analog digital converter, and several dozen circuits, all wired together on half a dozen circuit boards. A portable digital cassette recorder, that would make sense. I guess that's where they store the data for the image, like how you'd used to store backups on tape back in the day. By using CCD to bring cameras into the digital age, Sasson drew a map leading to a business goldmine for Kodak. Spoiler alert, they didn't follow his roadmap. All they had to do was follow it. Unfortunately, too many cooks spoiled the broth. How did they do this? Good, we're getting into this. Despite spending huge amounts of money developing Sassen's ideas, the higher-ups at Kodak viewed a possible digital revolution as too big a risk. They decided to stick to what they knew best, a decision that they came to regret mightily down the line. And I get it. I mean, it does seem a little bit short-sighted, but Kodak's got this technology. They decide to sit on it because they're making too much money from film. But guys, someone is going to come along at some point. It's not like this is going to be a secret forever. This CCD device or whatever it was invented externally. At some point, someone's going to come up with this idea as well, and they will crush you. Spoiler alert again. They did. Sassen himself explained this. This is also from the New York Times. They were all convinced that no one would ever want to look at their pictures on a television set. I remember, just to interrupt here, I remember back in the day when these kind of digital photos were first kicking off, I didn't want to look at photos on a computer either. So I get the thinking, but boy, were we wrong. I also think that I remember when tablets came out and I thought those were a waste of time. So I'm not exactly the person to listen to when it comes to predicting future technology trends.
You, science.
Let's carry on. Every digital camera that was sold took away from a film camera, and we knew how much money we made on film. That was the argument. Of course, the problem is pretty soon you wouldn't be able to sell film, and that was my position. Sassen was a smart dude. Kodak's lack of interest was a source of frustration for Sassen. He had good reason to be frustrated. The young engineer continued his work in the field, and by 1989 he had built the first modern digital SLR, or single lens reflex camera, with Robert Hills. I remember getting my first digital. It's right here. Oh my god, this is awesome. Does my mic extend? This is actually decorating my set. This is a Nikon, how do you say that? D50. This was my first ever digital camera. Look at that beast of a screen on the back. This thing has been around the world with me. Good memories in this thing. But now wildly out of date. His 70s camera was capable of producing an image of 100,000 pixels, which works out at 0.01 megapixels. This is... I don't think it says, I want to say it's like 6 or something. The SLR could produce 1.2 megapixels. Wow, that's impressive. Considering it's 1989, and maybe I was wrong about this being 6. The Nikon D50 has, I'm going to look it up later, but it has this many pixels. I don't think it's that much better. Despite this, the bosses at Kodak weren't biting. 1.2 megapixels was just over 1 million pixels, and technically Sassen needed 2 million to match the quality of old-fashioned film stock. Just for some reference here, I looked up some numbers on what sort of different numbers of pixels devices have. So his camera could do, just over 1 million pixels. On this one screen on this phone, there are 4.8 million pixels. On your TV at home, assuming you've got a 4K, you got 8.8 million pixels. So technology moved on. There were also like 15 megapixel images like years ago of big cities, and you can zoom in like crazy far. I'm sure there are now like 500 megapixel images. If anyone's got a cool one of those, you know, those huge cities pictures where they've stitched together like 1 million images to make like an insane digital photo, link that below. I would love to take a look. And while you're linking that below, or you're looking for that link, smash that like button. Ironically, as his employers were pushing away from SLR, digital photography was taking a hold of the market. See, I knew it would happen. Traditional analog cameras were falling out of favor because they were a massive pain in the arse. The legendary brand did try to play catch-up, but they simply weren't fast enough, and developments such as the smartphone left them in the dust. Kodak eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2012. There were other factors that contributed to Kodak's fall from grace. They notably dropped the ball with the 1984 Olympics, which was taking place in Los Angeles. Filming the events would have brought in big money for them, but they passed. Rival Fuji came in and took the rewards, giving competitors a financial headache. Alright, so another reason Kodak failed. Not super interesting. However, Fuji released the first portable digital camera, the DSX, at the end of the 80s, but they did it in Japan. Meanwhile, Kodak were beaten on home turf, that's America, by a company called Dicam. I'm gonna guess those guys aren't in business anymore, because I've never heard of anyone having a Dicam. They released an unsuccessful portable camera called the Dicam Model 1 in 1990, and I guess their company was unsuccessful as well. As for when digital cameras first reached the public, that isn't entirely clear. It is believed that the Megavision Tessera from 1987 was first out the gate. Don't know what happened to Megavision. Also guessing they're not in business. While it's easy to see Kodak as a lumbering dinosaur, they still managed to be cutting edge. The introduction of the photo CD in 1991 was arguably one of their last great innovations. I was 4 years old when the photo CD came out in 1991. I remember the photo CD. I remember this being my kind of first interaction with pictures on a TV, because you could get this photo CD, you could put it in like the computer or maybe a DVD player, or couldn't have been a DVD player, but in the computer, and you could look at the photos. So you'd develop your 35 pictures from your 35mm film with your 21 pictures on it or whatever, and then also put it on a photo CD, which you could see the pictures on the computer. It was cool. This was arguably one of their last great innovations. They did nothing with Steve Sassen's digital camera to their cost, but bankruptcy, it wasn't the end of them. Kodak are still in business and released their first smartphone, the Ektra, in 2017. Better late than never. I'm not really sure what I can say about products on this channel without risking getting sued. I watched a video the other day about a guy who was like, the Apple credit card's kind of shit, and Apple sued him. So I won't say it's kind of shit, but just Google it and you will find out that it's Also, companies going bankrupt, I used to think that that meant, the company goes bankrupt, that's it, it's gone away, like Pan Am, it's never coming back. But bankruptcy just means like you can restructure your shit and then come back and make a great mobile phone in 2017. The Ektra. The cutting edge. Everyone has an Ektra. I mean, you gotta get rid of this piece of shit and get an Ektra. Sassen never managed to get his idea of a digital revolution off the ground at Kodak. However, he was awarded the National Medal of Technology and Innovation by former President Barack Obama at the White House in 2009. That's a plus, but he should have gone and started his own company with his technology and become a billionaire. And now let's get into some bonus facts, shall we? Kodak have a long association with the movie business and are championed by top filmmakers such as Christopher Nolan and J.J. Abrams. In 2014, they pressed Hollywood studios to continue the old-fashioned method of processing film rather than casting it aside for the cheaper. In 2014, they were still considering that, maybe we should film on film. Wasn't that like 2014, major movies? When was the last time you saw like film in a cinema? Do you remember? That was shit. It would have like the weird crackliness over it. You'd get like the weird black blob in the corner. Digital's awesome and better. Another bonus fact, the name of Kodak lives on courtesy of Paul Simon's 1973 single, Kodachrome. Named after the company's 35mm format, it nearly hit the top spot. The song's chorus is practically an advert for the brand. I've never heard this song. I can't play it right now because I want to make money off this video. Copyright strikes, yada yada yada. There's also a 2017 movie called Kodachrome starring Ed Harris and Elizabeth Olsen. Ed Harris and Elizabeth Olsen should be a pretty good movie. It gets 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. And the final page is just sources. So that's it for today. I have been Simon. This has been Business Blaze. The way we do it on this channel is this was my own idea, but if you have a suggestion for me, something that you want us to research and then we can learn it together, please do hit me up in the comments below. Vote up the ones you like. We will make them. It'll be awesome, like a sort of collaborative learning experience. That's what we do here. Like, subscribe, all of that great stuff, and I'll see you next time.